When news...
Nicole Kidman has filed for divorce from Keith after 19 years of marriage. The court papers show the actress will remain the primary caregiver of the couple's teenage daughters.
When Keith turned 57, the world expected him to celebrate with another hit song, another dazzling performance, or another red carpet moment with his wife Nicole Kidman. But instead, what fans got was something completely different. A confession, a quiet, honest reflection that peeled back the glamorous layers of one of Hollywood's most admired marriages. For nearly 2 decades, Keith and Nicole had been seen as the perfect couple. Beauty, talent, and loyalty all rolled into one stunning love story. But the truth, as Keith finally admitted, was far from perfect. Behind the smiles, the awards, and the public displays of affection, there were years of pain, struggle, and sacrifice that nearly tore them apart. Keith began his confession with a simple line: "I almost lost everything, including her." And those words were enough to silence the world. For the man who'd spent years masking his battles behind music, this was the first time he truly opened up about the storm that once raged inside him. It wasn't just fame that challenged their love. It was addiction, insecurities, and the constant tug-of-war between his music career and the life Nicole tried to build around him. Their story didn't begin like a fairy tale. In fact, Keith confessed that when he first met Nicole back in 2005, he didn't believe he was good enough for her. She was a global movie star, elegant, graceful, already an Academy Award winner. He was a country boy from Australia who'd fought his way out of obscurity through hard work, heartbreak, and the guitar he clung to like a lifeline. And yet, Nicole saw something in him. A depth, a quiet soul, and a man who'd been through enough darkness to truly appreciate love. Still, love wasn't enough to save them from the battles that would follow. Within the first year of their marriage, Keith found himself spiraling into addiction, something he'd thought he'd already overcome before meeting her. He revealed that those days nearly destroyed their bond. Nicole was forced to make one of the hardest decisions of her life: to intervene, to fight for him, even when he'd stopped fighting for himself. She staged an intervention, gathered his closest friends, and begged him to enter rehab. It wasn't about fame or reputation. It was about saving the man she loved. Keith later admitted that her strength during that time changed him forever. "She saved my life," he said quietly in an interview, his voice trembling. But even after he got clean, things weren't magically perfect. There were years of rebuilding trust, learning to communicate, and redefining what love meant when both people had lived through so much pain before. Nicole had been through her own heartbreak. Her public divorce from Tom Cruise had left her wounded, cautious, and protective of her heart. And Keith, despite his success, still carried the scars of his own past. Growing up in a turbulent home and constantly fearing abandonment. When the world saw them on red carpets, smiling and holding hands, they saw love. But behind those moments were countless nights of quiet struggle, therapy sessions, arguments, tears, and forgiveness. Keith's confession reminded fans that real love isn't perfect. It's Raw, fragile, and sometimes even painful. And yet, through all of it, their bond didn't break. It bent, it bruised, but it survived. Because in the end, Keith Urban and Nicole Kidman were not just a couple. They were two souls who found light in each other's darkness. As Keith continued to open up, he admitted that even after overcoming addiction, fame itself became a quiet enemy in their marriage. Touring the world, performing in different cities every night and being surrounded by flashing lights and screaming fans. It all seemed glamorous from the outside. But deep down, Keith felt trapped between two worlds. The stage that made him who he was and the home that reminded him of who he really wanted to be. He said there came a time when he realized success could be just as dangerous as failure. The long tours kept him away from Nicole and their two daughters, Sunday Rose and Faith Margaret, for months at a time. He remembered watching his daughters grow up through phone calls and video chats, and how it slowly started breaking him apart. I was living my dream, he said, but I was missing my life. Those words struck deep because they reflected a truth so many in the spotlight quietly carry: the loneliness behind the fame. Nicole, on the other hand, had her own career commitments between film sets, awards ceremonies, and constant travel. She too felt the weight of separation. But unlike many couples in Hollywood, they refused to let that distance define them. Keith revealed that they made a pact early in their marriage. They would never spend more than 2 weeks apart, no matter how busy life became. It wasn't always easy, but they both fought to honor that promise. Still, he admitted that there were moments when the weight of it all nearly crushed them. There was one tour, Keith recalled, when everything seemed to fall apart. He was emotionally drained, physically exhausted, and starting to lose his sense of purpose. During one phone call, Nicole told him something that stopped him cold. She said, "Keith, we've worked too hard to lose each other." Now, that one sentence made him realize that their love wasn't something to take for granted. It was something he had to fight for every single day. After that conversation, Keith made a decision that surprised even his management team. He cut his tour short. He flew home to be with Nicole and the kids, even though it meant canceling sold-out shows and refunding tickets. For him, it was worth it. No show, no fame, no applause is worth losing the people who matter most, he confessed later. That moment marked a turning point, not just in his marriage, but in his entire outlook on life. Nicole once said in an interview that Keith taught her what unconditional love really looks like. She admitted that his vulnerability, his willingness to change, and his deep emotional honesty reminded her that love isn't about perfection. It's about presence. They learned to be there for each other, even when everything around them felt unstable. Keith's fans noticed a shift in his music after that. His songs became more reflective, more emotional. Tracks like Blue Ain't Your Color and Parallel Line carried traces of the man who'd seen both the highs of fame and the lows of personal struggle. He was no longer just singing about love. He was living it raw and unfiltered. In that phase of his life, Keith also began to embrace faith more openly. He often spoke about how he believed that meeting Nicole was not an accident but destiny. "I think God sent her to me," he once said. "I needed saving and she showed up." Even with all their challenges, they managed to keep their marriage grounded in something very rare in Hollywood: gratitude. Every anniversary, every small family moment became sacred. Keith learned that love, when tested, can either shatter or strengthen. And for him and Nicole, it became the foundation of everything they built together. But just when things seemed calm, life threw them another curveball. One that would test their bond all over again. In the next chapter of Keith's confession, he opened up about the unexpected struggles that surfaced as they both faced aging, shifting priorities, and the fear of losing each other again. This time not to addiction or distance, but to time itself. As Keith Urban entered his 50s, he began to see life through a quieter, more reflective lens. The bright lights of the stage that once thrilled him now sometimes felt blinding. The endless applause, while still humbling, no longer filled the empty spaces inside him. "I started realizing," he admitted, "that fame doesn't love you back. It only claps while you're shining." What mattered now wasn't the next chart topping hit or the sold-out arena. It was coming home to Nicole. To laughter, to the smell of dinner cooking, and the sound of his daughters running down the hallway. But age, as he explained, brings its own set of challenges. The late nights and constant travel that once felt effortless began to take their toll. His voice, once as strong as ever, started showing the strain of decades on tour. Some nights he would come off stage feeling lightheaded, his throat sore, and heart pounding faster than usual. "It scared me," he said quietly. "I used to think I was invincible. Then I realized I'm not 25 anymore." Nicole saw it, too. She would gently ask him to slow down, to rest more, to take care of himself. But slowing down wasn't easy for a man who had spent most of his life on the road. It was in his blood. Yet, deep down, he knew she was right. He began cutting back on the number of shows he performed each year. He started taking long breaks in between tours, spending time with family in Tennessee, far from the flashing cameras of Los Angeles or Nashville. And then came a moment that changed everything. During a routine checkup, Keith was told that some of his previous lifestyle choices, years of exhaustion, pressure, and stress, had left lasting effects on his health. While it wasn't life-threatening, it was serious enough to force him to rethink everything. When the doctor looks at you and says, "You need to start taking care of yourself now or you may not get another chance," that hits you hard, he recalled. He went home that night, sat on the porch with Nicole, and told her everything. There was a long silence between them before she reached out, took his hand, and whispered, "Then let's grow old together the right way." Those words became his new mission: to live with balance, to live with love, and to live with gratitude. Keith also began reflecting more openly on his marriage and how fragile love can be when the world keeps pulling you apart. In interviews, he confessed that there were times early on when they both wondered if they'd made the right decision. Two people from different worlds trying to build something real in a city where relationships often crumble under the pressure. But every time life tested them, they came back stronger. Nicole's my home, he said. No matter where I am, when I'm with her, I'm home. As their daughters grew older, Keith and Nicole faced another kind of challenge. The one every parent faces when they realize their children are no longer little. Sunday and Faith began forming their own identities, their own dreams. Keith often shared that being a father changed him more than anything else ever could. When I hold my girls, he said, everything else fades. The fame, the fear, the failures, they all disappear. In many ways, the changes in his family life mirrored the changes in his career. Keith's music began to slow down, not in popularity, but in pace. The lyrics became deeper, more introspective. Songs like God Whispered Your Name in the Fighter weren't just chart hits. They were love letters to Nicole and the life they had built together. But while Keith was learning to embrace peace, the entertainment industry around him was shifting. Younger artists were taking center stage, country music was blending more with pop, and the world Keith once knew was evolving fast. Many wondered if Keith would fade quietly into the background. But those who knew him best understood Keith Urban was not one to fade. He was simply evolving, letting his music tell the truth of where he was in life. Still, there was one topic Keith avoided for years, one that everyone in the media kept bringing up. The truth about how his marriage with Nicole truly survived everything fame threw their way. And when he finally decided to tell the truth about that, it wasn't what anyone expected. When Keith Urban finally decided to speak openly about his marriage to Nicole Kidman, fans and media alike leaned in. For years, their love story had seemed almost too perfect. Two global stars deeply in love, defying the odds in a world where fame often destroys even the strongest of bonds. But what Keith revealed wasn't the fairy tale most people imagined. It was raw, painful, and astonishingly human. He began by admitting that the early years of their marriage were the hardest of his life. I was scared, he said. Scared that I wasn't good enough for her. Scared that I'd mess it all up. Despite the glittering success and adoring fans, Keith carried within him a quiet storm, a fear of losing everything he loved most. Nicole married